Hey there, this is Dennis Anyone with Dennis Hensley. It's a podcast about making things up and making things happen. I love talking to creative people. I think art and creativity make life worth living, make the world go around. And so today I get to talk to somebody I've known a very long time. His name is Christian McLaughlin. He is a writer. He's written novels like Glamour Puss and Sex Toys of the Gods. He's worked on TV shows like Facts of Life and Desperate Housewives. And now he has a new play that is playing at the Fringe Festival here in LA called Trumpery. And it's the Trump family on a yacht, and it's really, really funny. I was a little worried going in, like, I have Trump fatigue. It's like, ugh, it's enough. But there was something so fresh about the take on this family in this play, and I laughed my head off. So I think if you go to it, you'll have a very good time. But before we get to the interview, I want to remind you that this podcast, Dennis Anyone, is brought to you by me. I do it. No Procter & Gamble. It's me. And I do it because I love it. It brings me a lot of joy. I find it really enriching, and I hope you guys like it too. But there are two ways you can support the podcast if you do like it. You can go to DennisAnyone.net, and you can leave a tip in my virtual tip jar. And I got a tip this week from a listener named Stephen S., who wrote in the notes that the show speaks to him. And I just, like, that meant a lot to me because I think it's sometimes very specific lens. But I love that he wrote that, and I appreciate the tip. I also have a new thing that you could do. I was turned on to it by my last guest, Kay Anderson. He's like, they have this website called Buy Me a Coffee. So you can buy somebody a coffee. So you can, if you're not feeling like, I can't afford a big tip, but I want to say, I like that interview, I'm gonna buy him a coffee. There's a website called Buy Me a Coffee. So if you go to DennisAnyone.net and you click on my virtual tip jar, one of the options there is Buy Me a Coffee. And you can just buy me a coffee. And the truth is, I do a lot of work on this podcast in a coffee shop. So it'd be like a sweet thing to be like, oh yeah, it's on my listeners. So that's very cool. And the other thing you can do to support the podcast is become a subscriber to DNR Studios. I'm part of a group of shows under the Derek and Romaine podcast banner. And for a monthly fee, you get my show early and you get all these other great shows. So it's a great thing to be a part of. Learn about that at dnrstudios.com. One more thing I want to plug. The Mismatch game, Taste the Rainbow Pride Edition, is coming to the Renberg in LA on Saturday, June 29th, 8 p.m. Our cast includes Julie Brown as Queen Elizabeth, Danny Casillas as Reba, Jackie Clark as Chucky's mom, Nadia Ginsburg as Cher, Dante's doing Christopher Lloyd, and Felix Pyre as the Mad Hatter. It's going to be a wild, prideful night. I hope to see you there. You can learn about that at LALGBTcenter.org/events. It's also on my Instagram, Dennis C. Hensley. All right, that's all the plugs. Let's get to the interview with Christian McLaughlin. Joining me now from Hollywood, California, it's Christian McLaughlin. He is the playwright and the director of the new show Trumpery, which I saw last night at the Hollywood Fringe Festival. Welcome, Christian.
Thanks for having me, Dennis. We've known each other a long time.
I was trying to think of when we first met. I have no recollection.
I think we officially really met around the time right after my first book came out and then your first book came out.
Right. We had books in the 90s together.
Yeah. And we had similar kind of books.
Yeah. And before we get into your play, I will share a memory I have of reading your book, Glamour Puss.
Yeah, that's the one.
I was on an airplane coming back from Jackson, Mississippi, where I had gone to interview Sandra Bullock for Detour magazine. And I'm reading Glamour Puss, and I'm super into it. And there is so much turbulence on the plane, more than I think I've ever had on a flight. And I kept thinking, I can't die. I need to finish this book. I wanted to keep reading your book because I was hoping the plane
paperback from you for that, because that's a great quote.
I know. I was like, I can't die. I can't die because I need to finish. I need to see what happens in this book. But I just remember and it was super turbulent. It was for a while. And I was like, I'm into this story. And I was looking ahead to see how much I had left to see if I would live or die. But that's my memory of Glamour Puss.
Well, thanks. That's a good one.
Yeah. So it's been years we've known each other. Trumpery is your new show. It's showing as part of the Hollywood Fringe Festival. I saw it last night. I laughed a lot. My friends and I laughed a lot. And I'll get into the specifics as to why. But first, talk about where the idea came from, how you started writing it, the beginning of it.
I first conceived it, I would say, shortly after his election in 2016. And I thought, this is not going to end well. So I started imagining what would happen if things went to shit. And then he had to flee. First, he had to flee some kind of prosecution with his inner circle, and how annoyed he would end up being with all of them. After having watched like the 2016 campaign, you get a sense of like the dynamics of the family, which is so dysfunctional and messed up, as much as like any like classic like sitcom family, like the Bundys or, you know, Arrested Development, families like that. So I had this idea, and then right before the 2020 election on my birthday, which was September 29th, suddenly out of the blue, the entire rest of the script came to me, because I had like written just like the first 30 pages maybe, and all of the rest of it came to me, exactly how to finish it, what would happen. And then I spent the month before the big, you know, 2020 election finishing it and polishing it and distracting myself from this scary election that seemed to be the whole world riding on it. And then after, you know, he lost, and, you know, I was excited. I had a rough draft, but then January 6th happened, and you realize that not only are people like not ready to like make fun of all this, there's a lot of danger still in the air, still hanging over the whole country. And it made me motivated to polish it and keep working on it, because I knew there would come a point where people would be ready to laugh at all of this and you know, the ridiculousness and absurdity of the Trumps and what they stand for and what they did, like what they did and continue to do so shamelessly. And I finished the show, and Fringe came up, and we thought, okay, we have to do this now before the election, and without realizing that we were going to end up having a play about the Trumps fleeing prison and prosecution for international waters that would be running between his conviction on 34 counts of all kinds of horrible things and his sentencing on July 11th.
You're so in the window. You're in the window. Yeah, that's hilarious. I mean, in theater,
you never get that. You never get to like have things ripped from the headlines, because usually the gestation period is so long.
Yeah.
And so we feel really fortunate about that chain of events.
Yeah. You want to hear something wild? We have the same birthday. We have the same birthday.
No.
September 29th.
The 29th of September?
Yeah.
I never knew that.
I didn't either until
oh my God.
Yeah, just now. What year? I'm 64.
We could have saved a lot of money on birthday parties.
All of these years. We could have been like Carrie Fisher and Laverne DeFazio. What's her name? Penny Marshall. You used to have
Penny.
Yeah. Well, I was
1964. My birthday, yes. Mine is 67.
67, right on. So we could have done that. What were you doing on your birthday when it all came to you? Were you in a?
I was playing with my cat.
You were playing with your cat on your birthday, and it just all hit you.
My two cats. I was playing with them and on the stairs.
Yeah.
And playing peekaboo with my cat Panther.
Yeah.
He likes to make up games himself, and we play them.
I love that. He's inventive.
He's super smart. So I was playing with him and trying to get the other cat involved, and then it just all like struck me like a vision. It was great, and I ended the game and ran to the computer to like write down all of the stuff I just thought of. So yeah, it was weird. That had never happened to me before either.
I know. It's like I wish I had more of those moments where it just came to me. You know?
Yeah.
No.
It was rare.
You'd always have to beat it out of yourself.
Yeah.
You're showing at the Hollywood Fringe Festival, and it's been around a while, but I feel like in the last few years, it's become a real thing in the city. Like, it seems like a perfect place to put something like this up for the first time. Like, to like get it on its feet, and it's a little bit like newer works that are a little fresher and kind of like a little scrappy, right? Like, what do you think of the Fringe?
Nice. Well, I really am grateful that, like, Los Angeles, which historically has been so unfriendly, I mean, it's so hard to do any theater. It's hard to get people to go to theater. So everyone, even like major theater, people sort of look at it as a second place to film and TV. And so to have this festival, and it really is, I think, the most popular, biggest like theater event that happens in LA in the year is really great. I did Fringe in 2014. The last time I was there was 10 years ago. I had written with Stan Zimmerman, who I've written several plays with, other plays. We did this show called Meet and Greet, which was no exit in a casting office.
Right. I remember hearing about it and I didn't see it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the breakout hit of Fringe. It like won the
Yeah.
top prize. It won several prizes, and then it went on to a 4-month run at that theater we were at, the Theater Asylum, when they had Theater Row before that was all closed down on Santa Monica Boulevard.
Yeah.
We were in this. I think the Theater Asylum is still there. It may have moved, but we did a 4-month run of meet and greet after Fringe. So that was a great experience, and I haven't done anything in 10 years, and now it's post-COVID, so I think that affects attendance a little bit. But yeah, we had a great house last night. I'm hoping the word of mouth will build because we are running till June 28th.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully people will come out to make fun of the Trumps with us and celebrate National Conviction Day.
Right, exactly. When I saw the subject of it, there have been other projects that are comedically taken on the Trumps, things that I've actually had on the podcast, and sometimes I really have an appetite for it, and then sometimes I'm like, I don't. This isn't funny anymore. Like, it goes kind of in waves, and so going into years, I was like, am I in the mood to laugh at this? Because it's such a dark time, and the answer is yes. And it's because of the way you write it and the way you talk about how it feels like a sitcom with the different characters. But I think what tickled me the most is, first of all, you have an awesome Trump, and I think if you don't, it's a problem because there's so many people interviewing, and you guys is great. Talk about him first.
Yeah. He's very young. He's way too young to play Trump, but he is very funny, and his name is Austin Walker. He's from Florida. He comes from a very Trumper background. So he sort of absorbed all of that from his family, even though he doesn't, he certainly doesn't agree with any of that. And then he was able to really work on the voice. Like his vocal impression was good at the beginning when we cast him a few months ago, but it's gotten really, really strong now. So much so that when I'm not looking at him, I'm hearing it. You hear Trump, and I'm so impressed at that vocal impersonation. And yeah, he's really gets into the spirit of the whole show. And he thought the script was really funny, and he wanted to do it. And we're glad to have him. Yeah,
he's great. Where did you find him? Did he just audition, or did you kind of find who does a Trump and you found him?
I asked somebody. There was someone that was referred to me, an actor named Jesse Merlin, who recommended Austin and said, this person does Trump. And so we sent him the script, and he liked it.
Well, my favorite parts were, normally when you see Trump in real life, he's the center of attention. He's the only one talking. It's a one-man show, basically. But in your show, other things are happening. So a whole scene will happen, or a whole interchange that he has nothing to do with, and then he'll come in with a one-liner, and they kill me, because we're not used to not having our eyes on him. And then he says something so Trumpy, and I imagine those things are fun to write, because you nailed it. And those were the moments that made me laugh the most, I think. He would just... You haven't thought about him in a while. Something's going on with Melania or whoever, and then he comes in with something. It
was fun writing his horrible comments. I mean, because nothing is sacred. I mean, he is anti-Semitic. He's racist. He's homophobic. He's hateful. He's horrible to Tiffany.
Yeah.
His 2 daughters. I mean, I loved writing. It was just fun imagining him being so annoyed with everybody, including Melania, and then being stuck with them on, what he considered a crappy 60-foot yacht. And just how annoyed he would be that, he's put into this position of having to leave everything behind just to escape prison. So that was fun for me. I mean, I'm a sitcom writer by, in general. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the dysfunctional family, because you just imagine Ivanka also like annoying everyone. She's the queen. She's usurped Melania.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on between them right now, but I just love that also the redheaded stepchild, Tiffany.
Yes. Played by John Cantwell, AKA Love Connie, a friend of mine and also a past podcast guest. You also get the Tiffany underdogness, the I'm not the favorite, the desperate,
the Jan Brady,
the Jan Brady of it all. Like, I think that's what's fun about it, is the sitcom tropes put onto this family. Like,
they just kind of fell in. I mean, they just seemed so appropriate for that.
Yeah. Like Trump is the Al Bundy that's just,
or the Archie Bunker.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the lines that made me laugh is when he said black thighs matter, because he's expressing that he has an attraction to somebody. Just like Yeah, those lines, the way he delivered them, the way they were written, those were moments that really made me howl. And then there was a physical fist fight that broke out where I was howling as well. So
yeah, that came off well. Lauren Howard Hayes plays Melania, and she is such a discovery. I mean, she has been amazing through this whole thing. I mean, she comes with her A game all the time, and she met me on Hollywood Boulevard last week, and we shot a video for our Instagram, which is Trumpery 2024.
Right.
And she came in costume and full Melania makeup, wig, everything. And then she's improvising. She's talking to people. She came with a full script for this little video. And, I'm a comedy writer. I look at the script and I'm like intimidated by how good it is. Yeah. But she's great to collaborate with. And then I threw in a few jokes, and we had so much fun with this little video of Melania on Hollywood Boulevard. You can see it on the Instagram. But she's, she made that Melania's green jacket.
Yeah.
She is, yeah.
And it was all funny again. Like, I worried that it wouldn't be. I'd worry like, because I'm literally, this morning I woke up and there was something on Twitter that was upsetting, and I was like, it's all because of this one man. And it was like, but yeah, your play nails all of that and also takes you away in a weird way.
I hope it fulfills viewers' fantasies about what should happen to them now.
Yeah.
Which, like, they're going to flee the country, which they could at any moment. And then I'm hoping it's like wish fulfillment, like the action of the play.
Yeah.
In the end.
Talk to me about a few of the other actors. My friend Felix Pyre plays Jared Kushner, very pussy-whipped take on Kushner.
Yeah. I know. I don't really know anything about their private life, but I mean, he's just a creepy guy. I mean, Felix is much too good-looking and charismatic, really, to play Jared. But he does capture the pussy-whipped aspect really well.
Yeah,
I just have to imagine.
Go ahead.
Not easy to be married to.
Yeah.
Natalie Whittle plays the stowaway.
The stowaway.
We won't reveal
who
the stowaway is. If you ever watch The Apprentice, you'll probably know who. You'll recognize her. We have an actress named Tatiana Vujovic who plays Ivanka.
Nice.
And she is great. She's very young and very funny, and she's great at playing a mega bitch. And, John Cantwell is Tiffany. It's kind of a surprise to see a drag Tiffany, hopefully, for the audience. But yeah, he is someone I've loved forever because of the Nellie Olsons.
Of course.
Which was his sketch comedy troupe that you probably saw a million times.
Of course.
They were great. They in the 90s when they hit the scene, I was so impressed by the Nellie Olsons. They were phenomenal. Really edgy, like a lot of gay content, but not all gay, just very edgy and super sharply written. And that was a writing team, Nora Burns and Terrence Michael, Terrence and Nora started the Nellie Olsons. Terrence I've known forever, and you have known through my production of Facts of Life.
Yes.
Terrence played cousin Jerry Jewell.
I remember this.
Blair's handy-capable cousin, who is a comedian with cerebral palsy, played by an actress with cerebral palsy, who actually came to see our show, Facts of Life, at the Renberg.
Did she come on a night when Terrence was doing her, or on?
Yes.
What was
she showed
that
up.
like?
I didn't know she was coming. I was a little scared, but then I saw her before the show. It's at it was at the Renberg at the Gay and Lesbian Center in that really great space they have in the courtyard, so everyone's lining up because the shows were sold out all the time. And so somebody told me Jerry Jewell is here, and I was like, okay. And I went and talked to her. I just wanted to see where her head was at. And I said, I have to apologize in advance. It's really mean. We go for the jugular. And she's like, I have a very sick sense of humor.
Right.
And so she did, and then she enjoyed the show so much. She was with a bunch of friends. They were all laughing. And at the end, the cast did not know she was there. And then I had arranged for her to go up on stage with them, and they did the curtain call, and they freaked out.
I'm sure. If you're Terrence and that happens, you've been doing your take on somebody, and they're there.
And she hugged him, and she loved it, and she told other people to come to the show. I didn't want to tell the cast in advance because I didn't want them to pull any punches. Because after talking to her, I knew she wanted to see like the full thing. Because we nail all the characters. But yeah, that was our favorite episode of Facts of Life, is the one where cousin Jerry returns to visit the girls, and then she spends the night and has sex with the hot French teacher and comes home like the walk of shame. And the whole episode is about how handicapped people have sex. And that was pretty shocking stuff for 1981. Like, you're not going to see that on Friends 20 years later either.
You know, the Facts of Life, they took on stuff. If you watch a rerun, you're like, oh, wow, that's kind of thorny.
Very dark.
I remember
Norman Lear produced material. Norman Lear was the producer.
Yeah.
So his company was. So they did everything. It was child prostitution, eating disorders, former ancestors that used to own slaves, every dark thing that clashed so ridiculously with like the Borscht Belt kind of Altercocker comedy writing of the jokes. And then meanwhile, there's all this, very edgy movie of the week subject matter. More often than not on Facts of Life, it's like a really serious issue.
Yeah, they dealt with stuff. You did it for 4 weeks as I remember, but I went every week. I never missed it. And
we did 4 weeks and we alternated episodes too. We did new weeks. We did 3 a night and then we were changing them all the time. And then we brought the thing back for like a third engagement where we were changing. I don't know what we were thinking. We were nuts.
I never missed it. I went to every one because I loved it so much. But I was trying to think of what year was that? I have no recollection.
It was in 2000. Okay, the show originated in 1998. I don't think you knew about it.
No.
Maybe, did you ever see it at the Hudson? Because we used to do it with Chips. It was called
I
Chips.
saw that. I did
Facts
see
of
it.
Life. Okay, that was the original incarnation of that. So it was an episode of Chips with a cast of dozens and like 75 tech cues. It was an hour-long episode of Chips with vehicles and foam core, and It was crazy. And then a Facts of Life episode, and then in 2002, everybody wanted me to bring it back, and we dispensed with Chips as much as we loved doing Chips because it was just too complicated. And
the stunts are tough,
and there's like 65 scenes in an episode, so it's that. And we would never cut anything. It would always be word for word.
Right.
So that was really. And what was good about Chips was the homoerotic tension between Ponch and John.
Yeah.
Because the way the creator of Chips like shot Eric Estrada and had people reacting to Eric Estrada, and the way his blonde white guy partner seemed to be in love with him. You knew the executive producer was in love with him, but it was just an interesting dynamic that we then would mirror with Blair and Joe and Facts of Life, which all that lesbian subtext is just there for the taking. It was shocking to us when we started looking at those because it's right there, and we loved it.
So this was around 2002. You were doing
2002. It went to the Renberg.
Yeah.
It ran in June, and then it came back in September, and then in 2004 it came back again.
Yeah.
So it was a long, long life for Facts of Life, and I would love to do it again. I wish we could have taken that on the road. Like Real Life Brady Bunch. I think it would have been a hit.
Would you do it again?
Yes, in a second. I would love to do it again.
All right, we're putting it out there. I'm putting it on my dream board. We're going to manifest it.
Yeah, we should, because there's even more episodes. We had like 8 in the rotation that we really like. Good ones too, like Blair, like a mentally challenged boy, but like, a hot mentally challenged guy is into Blair, and she has to let him down gently. And Natalie becomes the editor of the school newspaper and turns into a raving bitch. That was one of the ones where Jamie Gertz played the bitchy sorority sister, Boots.
Right.
Yeah, anyway, I know way too much about Facts of Life, obviously.
I love those episodes where something would happen and the character would become a totally different personality for one episode.
Oh, yeah, for the one episode.
Yeah.
Well, remember when Tootie, of course, one that we did all the time with Mink Stoll and Kate Flannery, Tootie went to New York. She ran away to go to New York City for the day, and she almost gets sucked into a teen prostitution ring.
Right.
Yes.
I also remember interviewing you for The Advocate for Spider Games, which was an MTV soap opera that you did. Was it 5 days a week? Remind me of how that was.
That was a very ambitious, exciting show for me that ended so disappointingly. We did 65 episodes of the show.
I remember seeing the sets.
5 nights a week. You came, it was a whole thing.
To the set.
It should have gone. Yeah, I found your interview with me was fantastic, and all these pictures of everything. It was great. And then MTV. They delayed the air date, and so it started airing, I think, in May or early June of 2001. And so our huge season finale week was the Tuesday of that week was 9/11.
Oh, wow.
So MTV stopped broadcasting their regular programming, and they never showed the last 5 episodes, even though we were having 1 million viewers a day. MTV never showed the rest of them until, I guess, 3 months later, without warning, they showed all the rest of them, at a different time. So people people that had been slavish fans of the show did not get to see the ending. So we did a charity fan event in the fall of 2000. I guess it was the late fall of 2001, where we invited people from all over the country to meet the cast, and then we screened all of that last week of episodes, and then they get to mingle with the actors and ask questions. And we thought the show would come back, but it never did.
Wow.
I think it was just one of those things.
Right. The cast were a lot of young people. Did any of them go on to bigger and better things? Were there any breakouts?
One of them, Enrique Murciano, who's Andy Garcia's cousin,
nice.
He went on to do a bunch of shows, crime shows, like mostly like detective
procedural type things,
and some other stuff. And then other people who I really had high hopes for, I was surprised to see they didn't continue. But we also had Mink Stoll and Jane Weedland recurring on the show. So
you gotta love it.
And I was going to have Terry Nunn was about to come from Berlin. She was about to come on as the, we had already figured out she was going to be the long lost mother of the main family.
Nice.
The Carlisle family. And I was going to bring her back to the screen because I always thought she was a really good actress. Like before she was a new wave diva, she was an actress, and she played like a Satan worshiping teen in a Barnaby Jones episode or something. She was really good, Terry Nunn. And then when they asked where's Mother Carlisle been all these years, she would of course say in Berlin.
Makes perfect sense. I love it.
Yeah. And Rena Riffle from Showgirls was going to come back and recur also. She was already on the show, but her part was going to be expanded.
Penny from Showgirls.
Yeah, Penny.
I love her.
Still in friends with her.
That seems like, for somebody like you, a dream job, and also really, really hard. Was it both?
It was hard. It was both. I didn't know. I didn't. It was the first time I was running a show. There were elements around that were undermining the success of the show, and I didn't really know how to deal with a network, especially as fickle a network as MTV, where they're all excited about you for 1 second, and then but by the time 6 months goes by and the actual shows are in the can and it's airing, they've moved on to other things they're interested in. So I wish it had aired right after your article appeared. That would have been the best time. But it was put on the shelf, and then, of course, we ended up running into 9/11, which just ended it with a fizzle. It was
like you and the movie Glitter. Both were, brought down.
I know. One of your favorite bad films.
It holds up.
Yeah.
One of your first jobs in Hollywood was Married with Children. Is that right?
That was one of my first writing jobs. Yeah, it was pretty close. I got a job. I got my TV dream job after struggling and being broke for 3 years. During that time, though, I did sell Glamour Puss, and I was busy writing scripts. But yeah, Married with Children was the show that got me into writing sitcoms. I love that show. It started right when I started college, and I was just blown away by how funny it was, and just how it was unlike anything that was on television at that time. And my writing partner at University of Texas at Austin, Valerie Ahern, and I, we would watch the show every Sunday, and then we would write together for 3 hours afterwards, working on our own spec script for the show. And then, we ended up working on the show a couple of years later.
Was it everything you thought it would be? What was it like?
And it was really, really fun. Yes, it was. It was late in the run of the show. By the time we got there, it was season 11.
Yeah.
But I would have happily stayed there. It could have gone on for a few years.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that I think Fox was ready to continue it, but the salaries were so high, and certain people were not easy to deal with, and to contract to do the episodes anymore. And people were sick of playing their characters, and so it did end. It kind of ended abruptly without even having a final. Thanks. It didn't even end with the final episode. We didn't even get a final episode. But we loved it. I mean, I love being there. I treasure that year that I was on the show. Well, but it was 1996 and 97. I was on it, and it was amazing. And we got to write kind of a finale, but not really. It was a real-time episode where Bud's pen pal from prison escapes and comes and holds the Bundy family hostage for 30 minutes. It was called A Desperate Half Hour. It was all one scene. And I got one of my favorite soap opera stars, Trisha Cast, who played Nina on Young and the Restless. She came and played Starla, the pen pal, and she was hilarious. And that was a really fun episode. We got to write a bunch of good episodes. I had a great time there. I only wish it had lasted longer for me.
I remember interviewing Christina Applegate during that time for Movie Line, and I remember asking her, I was like, do you have any hobbies? Like, what do you like to do when you're not working? And she goes, well, I collect houses. Like, she was buying houses, and I just remember thinking, oh, that's right, you're so rich. You're so rich already. You have multiple houses.
Some of them were paid a lot. But, of course, Ed was paid way more than everybody else. I mean, he was making $475,000 an episode in that season 11. Yeah. And that's a 4-day work week, sometimes 3 days, sometimes 2 days. But Christina, one of my favorite people, I mean, the total opposite of her character.
Right.
And she just was a joy. I mean, she would make the whole cast, they would make everything funny. Whatever you gave them, they would improve on and nail. From, Amanda Burse and Ted McGinley, they were all so funny. It was such a treat to work with people that could be that good, that fast, and just nail it. And we loved it. I miss that show and the people I worked with. It was a highlight for sure.
What do you remember about when you first came to LA?
Oh, I remember. I left Austin, Texas, with the hit show running. I had this play, The Boys in Cell Block Q, which I had rewritten. It was a very obscure off Broadway New York boys in prison. It was like a spoof of women's prison films. It was Boys in Reform School, and I took it and rewrote it, and I put it on as a play at University of Texas, because anybody who took classes in the drama department could put on their own production using the facilities, and so I did with my friends, and it went from 3 nights at UT. The third night was so packed because it had male nudity in it. And it was funny. So that was so packed. It was standing room only. Somebody was there from the local theater, the coolest of the local theaters in Austin, which was called Capital City Playhouse. They saw the show that last night. The next day they called me and went, why don't we take this show and open it as a midnight show at Cap City? So we went directly from the campus to Capital City. It never had happened before in the history of this program at UT. And meanwhile, they had tried to censor my ads. They banned my ads. They wouldn't approve them. And then, of course, on the third night, I'm like, what the fuck? We had nothing to lose. And I papered the whole gay bar district with our flyers that they had rejected, because what are they going to do, expel me? I was almost ready to graduate. Right. So the show went to Cap City, and it was an even bigger success. And it was still running when I drove away from Austin the day after graduation of my 1978 Subaru that may or may not make the trip. And I came here with $400 in my pocket. And and then immediately, like, the action of Sex Toys of the Gods, my second novel, started to take place. I'm house sitting this mansion in Beverly Hills, a $10 million house, and I got this gig house sitting, owned by these incredibly evil rich people. I had never met anyone that rich, and they were treated us so horribly. They were so mean, and I had a terrible job at an agency where I made $250 a week as an assistant. And I could have had $300 a week, but I was embarrassed to tell them that I saw the ad at the Gay and Lesbian Center job board, because I didn't want to out myself in the interview. That's why I accepted the $250, and I felt like such a piece of shit for not telling them that.
Wow! So did the ad at the center say $300?
Yeah, it was $300. So
wow,
there was another ad that she said, where did you see the ad? And I said, wherever she suggested, the office manager, and it wasn't the center. I didn't realize the rate would be different, or maybe they just decided to stick me with and pay me $250 a week. It was barely enough to survive. I mean, you couldn't survive. I was starving, and after we left the mansion, Valerie and I, my writing partner, lived together. We lived in this bottom of a house in Beverly Glen, a really like old, big California redwood style Marin County house. And then in the basement, or not the basement, under the deck, he had made an unlicensed, not up to code separate apartment he rented out.
Right.
So I basically slept in a cupboard on a futon, and mice would run over my face in the night.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
When you look back at those early days, I have so much nostalgia for the 90s. I think because that's when things started to click and happen, and but
they were pretty good to me. Starting in 93, which is when I sold. In 94, that's when I got my first TV job. And so the 90s were great.
Yeah, the 90s were wonderful. I don't know. I have a lot of nostalgia for them. You wrote on Desperate Housewives for a bit?
I did. I freelanced there, and I worked on several episodes. but just during a short period of time around season, I guess it was season 3 or something.
Yeah. Do you remember any of the plot stuff you were writing, or was any part of it fun, or like, oh, I like to write for this person or that? Do you remember anything about the specifics?
It wasn't the most fun job.
Right.
I don't remember a lot of it. I think I remember something about Kyle McLaughlin being raped by Valerie Mahaffey. Maybe that was going on.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't. When I was there, it was everything was rewritten at the last minute while they were filming,
right?
And every episode, so we were like a little back in the pipeline, like writing this upcoming scripts. But I don't know. We didn't have that much creative input or did that much of anything. We just sort of were there, and other people, decided what was going to happen.
What was going to happen. But the drama was not all on the set. Some of it, I think, was behind the scenes.
The drama was way behind the scenes, and I could tell you stories. I
would love to hear them. Why do I love bad behavior showbiz stories? I think it helps me rationalize the fact that I wasn't super successful in those worlds. Like, maybe it's maybe for the best because they were all assholes or whatever. I don't know, but I do love to hear them.
There's a lot of toxic personalities, and just unbelievable behavior, or believable. I mean, I don't. One of my friends that was on staff at Desperate Housewives for most of it, I think all the way up to like season 9 or 10, and then left rather unceremoniously. He was working on a memoir called The Devil Wears Sweatpants.
I hope it comes out. I want to read that.
I know. It's just for the title alone. But you can imagine who that's about.
Yeah. Now, when you were growing up, were you totally enamored with television, Hollywood? Like, was it something you always wanted to be a part of?
Yeah. I was enamored of television. I remember watching soap operas during the day as a kid and really getting into them. I loved Edge of Night and Search for Tomorrow and Young and the Restless. And I was really into those daytime shows. I liked how I knew how, adult the subject matter was. And I wasn't able to stay up late and watch stuff. But the soaps at the time, they were pretty... there wasn't a lot of oversight with these soaps, so they got away with a lot, especially these ones that I watched. Like Search for Tomorrow, Morgan Fairchild went to women's prison, and I was lucky. It was home for 3 weeks with the chicken pox, so in second grade. So I got to really develop a love for daytime drama and women in prison all at the same time.
I feel like that's a really formative thing. Those chicken pox kind of laid out the rest of your life in a way.
And the next summer, there was a huge Sweeps episode where Morgan Fairchild's bad girl character, she was having a fight with her married lover and she fell through a plate glass door and then her face is horribly scarred in the fall. And I would reenact the commercial as Morgan Fairchild's character in my room, standing on my bed. And then I would have a little air mattress that we would pull out from the bottom so I could swivel off the bed and pretend to fall through the glass. And of course, my dad, the macho motorcycle riding Vietnam vet, super hunk, was a little disconcerted by that, you could say.
Would you do it in front of him? Because I remember I was watching
Saturday
Night.
It was a tiny house. He could hear me.
He could hear you. He knew what was happening.
He could hear me. I still remember the line. When you said you loved me, that was the truth. That was the truth. Everything else was lies. Nothing but lies. And then she turns to leave, and she goes through the door. Breaks the glass with her face.
Oh my gosh.
That would be one of the commercials that they would put on for Search for Tomorrow. And so I was acting it out weeks before the actual episode came on.
Amazing.
And I may have had a towel over my head as a wig.
Sure.
That may have happened.
And you would do this repeatedly. It wasn't a one of.
I did it a lot that summer because I was excited about that development. And my dad heard it a couple times. And he also, he had caught me, and I'm not trans, but he had caught me posing like Daphne from Scooby-Doo, like with my hand on my hip or something. And that was like a big deal. I mean, he was alarmed. He's great with everything now, but he was alarmed to have such a fruity little kid because he was like a super jock and like very alpha male and really good at all these sports and very handsome and, and I was just a little fruitcake
Yeah,
who
but
had very strange interests.
but you said you have a good relationship now. I think that's great.
Now he will just say fuck you in public to anyone that he thinks does something homophobic. He will like school people. I mean, he is beyond an ally. Like both of my parents are like no, they're not going to accept anything against any LGBTQIA. I forget it. They're still very fierce.
I'm so touched by that because my parents are no longer here, and my father passed before I came out. My mother right after. So I don't know that part of them. I like they never had a chance to be that. I don't think my father would have been. He wasn't particularly interested in me. But do you remember a time when you could feel him coming around? Do you remember a time when it was sort of like, oh, we're going to be able to build something here?
Yeah, I think after I moved to California, I mean, I kind of came out to them like right at the end of college. They came to Austin. They were visiting me to see the Boys in Cell Block Q, the play. And so seeing that play kind of like, I would have told them everything. And my mom kind of knew from seeing the play.
Wow.
And my dad didn't really understand it. I don't know if he thought it was a choice. He didn't really know a lot of gay people. I mean, this was the height of AIDS also. Yeah. This is like 1981. So everybody hears about everyone's dying of AIDS, all these young guys. And, meanwhile, I was very not promiscuous at all. And I'm super aware of it since it's happened. I would read the Village Voice as a ninth grader and go, oh shit, I'm not gonna ever have sex because you could die. So I think he had a lot of problems, just worrying that I would be, have a miserable life or be in danger or something. And then it just kind of clicked, and I think my mom set him straight, so to speak. And by the time I had boyfriends and everything. By the time that all happened, like they were super supportive. Like they always wanted my boyfriends to come visit with me, and there've never been a minute of anything. I mean, they're just the best, and they still are. They're young. They had me when they were 19. Like my mom was pregnant when they got married.
Right.
It was a scam town when I was born 6 months later.
Yeah. My parents were old when they had me, and they weren't around. Oh. So I'm very touched by your journey. I think I realized that
I'm lucky. I'm really lucky because most of my friends don't have that. Even my younger friends, they don't have such a supportive set of parents.
That's kind of cool.
My brother is great. My brother is amazing. My brother is a orthopedic surgeon for cats and dogs.
Yeah.
And a fantastic, super talented vet, like one of the best in the country. Yeah. And he lives in Connecticut. And he's also awesome. And his whole family is great.
I also love that you went to school in Austin, which seems like a really cool place. Was it cool then, or now it's super cool?
It was the coolest.
Yeah.
It was starting to lose its cool a little when I was there because, cool movie theaters were closing down. I remember we were all appalled when the Varsity Cinema, which was this really cool art house midnight movie place on the Drag, which is that main street called Guadalupe, right on the edge of campus. That theater was turned into a Tower Records, and we were all offended and upset that all these chain stores were coming into the Drag, and now Tower a record store is like
right now. I'm nostalgic for Tower. Oh, it was a Tower Records.
I know. I know. Me too. But then we used to be the Varsity Theater where we saw, art house shockers, and we saw My Beautiful Laundrette and Morris, and all the gay art films would come there, and horror film. It was so cool. And there were all of these great bookstores. It was so different from the rest of Texas. It was like this island of amazing. It was kind of what I would imagine New York was going to be, because that was my plan, was to go to NYU. That was my only plan since I was 11 years old. I got early admission to NYU. They gave me the biggest scholarship they gave anyone in the film department at the time. And I had a moment of clarity in Texas, and I'm like, I can't go to New York and spend, it was going to be like I was going to go into debt by 10 or 12,000 a year to go there. And that's without any fooling around money, without any fun money.
Right.
And I just knew I don't want to live in New York and be broke. And so I had not applied anywhere else, so I had to sit home a year and work at video stores and hang out with my mom. And then I went to UT, and my roommate and best friend from San Antonio was the director, Robert Rodriguez.
Oh, my gosh.
That's who I lived with the first year.
Wow.
We had made films together. We had been doing stuff together since I was a junior in high school. I met him through friends that worked at this movie theater that I was a popcorn slut at for the summer.
I love the term popcorn slut. I think that might be the title of this. I was a popcorn slut for the summer. Are you still in touch with him?
A little bit. I mean, I can reach him. He's very eccentric, and he's in Austin in his compound, and I haven't seen him. I think the last time I physically saw him and we hung out was like 10 years ago. But he became like an overnight success, like way before it felt way before. I mean, I started writing for TV like 2 years after he hit it big with his movie El Mariachi, which I remember him going down to Mexico to make. And I remember him we weren't living together at the time, but I knew he was financing it through being a guinea pig at this pharmaceutical company in Austin where they experimented on lots of college students that was the fastest way to make money in town.
Wow.
And I was afraid to do it.
But isn't it just this idea of these young people bursting with ideas, bursting with ambition, super creative? Yeah. It just feels very alive and a little poignant.
It was cool. All the coolest movies would come there. Like any cool movie that you were, because I would got the Village Voice starting at age 12.
Yeah.
And I cut out the ads and I would imagine what I would go see that week, like for theater. And I found out all about Charles Busch and Ann Magnuson and Charles Ludlam and all these heroes of mine through Michael Musto's column and other things in The Voice. I felt like a New Yorker, even though I didn't actually make it to New York until years later. Like it was 10 years after I would have started NYU that I finally made it to the city. And it was good that I waited because I got to see it through this very successful couple friends of mine. So they gave me like the deluxe version where they owned their own brownstone in the Upper West Side. They took me everywhere in cabs. They paid for everything. We saw all of the stuff. It was the best way to experience New York. I think being a broke college student who could not even afford to go to the movie theaters that I craved, I don't think that would have been good. I think that would have been traumatic.
Yeah, it would have been hard. You have your partner when you came out here, Valerie, and you were starting out. Was it good to have an ally when you were trying to break in? Like
yes,
I think
it was good to have
help.
A partner because they got 2 for 1. They get 2 writers for the price of 1. So
you split a salary.
You do. Starting, you end up if you start rising, you don't end up having to split one person's salary all the time.
Right.
It does correct a little bit, but yeah, it was helpful because they would want 2 for 1. So most places were happy to have a team. It was funny because right when we were about to get our very first job, we had finished this thing called the Warner Brothers Writers Workshop. Well, did you take part in that?
No, I didn't, but I've heard of things like that. Yeah,
it was a really big program at the time in the early 90s where they would pick people based on their spec scripts, and then you'd have a night class every week for like 12 weeks. And at the end of it, you would have finished a spec script, and the people that were the best in the program got placed on Warner Brothers shows. And there was a deal they had where you were paid a little less than guild minimum for the first 12 weeks, and then you slowly got yourself bumped up, but the program paid for your salary. So it wasn't really any skin off the show's ass to hire you. It was a great training ground. And we were one of the top 2 or 3 people in that class from our script and from everything. So we thought, okay, we have a good chance of getting placed. And right before we had been placed on a show, and we were waiting all day for the phone call about when to go in for this show, which was a show called Something Wilder with Gene Wilder. And we did not get the call that day. And the next day I heard from my other friend in the program that this other person in the class had gotten that job instead of us. And we found out later it was because they did not have 2 desks available in their office. They only had 1, so they couldn't hire a team. So they had to hire a single writer.
It was just about furniture.
Crushing furniture ruined my plan. I remember it was Gay Pride weekend, and I remember getting my friend from the program that didn't get placed but was, rooting for us. He came and told me, "Oh, Jennifer Glickman got that job." And Jennifer Glickman I know and love now, and I ended up working with her. And also what's funny is the people running that show who made the furniture decision were Stan Zimmerman and Jim Berg, who I write these plays with, and Jim, who I know really well. So eventually I did end up working for them, but yeah, it's kind of ironic.
Right. There's a lot of blows like that when you look back and you start to think about them, and I'm like, gosh, there's so many.
It was June, yeah, and then we didn't get a job until end of August. We finally got another job. We finally were placed by the program on the WB network, on their new fall lineup. They had never existed as a network. So that was some tough summer months because we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know what we would do. We didn't know how. I didn't have any money. I had been laid off by the agency that I worked at. The Glamour Puss was coming out in September. I had said on the jacket of Glamour Puss I was a television writer, thinking, okay, I will be by the time this gets published a year from now. So I barely made it under the wire. I think I made it 8 days under the wire with Glamour Puss. So that was scary because I thought it's all going to end because of a desk.
It's all going to end because of a desk. Man, those stories, I think if you look back and we start going through our journeys, there's a lot of them. And what keeps you going? What kept you going through the ups and downs of it all?
I have one thing that I can do, which is write snarky, vicious jokes. I mean, I can write. My one skill is writing. I can write any genre of TV, but I have no other marketable skill. So I just, what else am I going to do? I haven't had a real job like since 1994. And that's problematic when you need to, like, if you want to branch out and do something else or have a side hustle or anything, you've kind of aged yourself out. Like if I wanted to go wait tables, which I would, love to do at this moment, this summer would be great. And no one's going to hire me. I mean, no one's going to hire me to do anything that I used to do, before I was a writer, because it's been too long and I had no other skills. So I knew I had to keep pursuing this because there was no other option.
What's it like to kind of have something out there again with Trumpery? It's exciting? Do you feel vulnerable around it? Like, how does it feel to be like, I'm back out there?
It feels really good because it was, that my best friend from college who I met on the first day of UT, Mariella Krause, is producing the play, and she offered to produce and pay for the whole thing, which was incredibly nice of her. She's my new writing partner also, and we've written a couple of things already that we're really excited about. She was kind enough to do this, and I'm really grateful, and I'm hoping it leads to some interest about some of my other projects, or for the Trumpery itself to go on to other places. I mean, I will admit I wrote it very much with Jimmy Kimmel in mind. He's one of my favorite comics, and I love the way he blasts the Trumps. Right. And he really inspired like the whole comic tone of the play, as did Howard Stern, who really had some of the funniest satire on his show during his presidency, where he would have fake Donald and fake Ivanka, these very funny actors, right, on the show as these characters. And they inspired me as I was writing the whole play. And would have a fake Melania. So it was very much like, this is my version of Howard's take on these characters. And Jimmy has a really similar take on them too. So we'll see who comes to it. I would love to take it somewhere else. I would love to use it as a political fundraiser and have it done. We could do it in San Francisco or New York or Austin or I don't know about Austin anymore. I mean, Austin's changed a lot.
Right.
Yeah, it's gotten a lot more like the island of sanity. It feels like the waters are rising around it.
I learned something in your play that I didn't know before. I did not know Tiffany Trump had a song. She had a single, right?
Yes.
So tell us about that. I didn't know.
I was doing a lot of research about everything and found out there's a lot of things in the play like that are taken directly from the mouths of the Trumps, like the speech Ivanka made about Tiffany. That was a real thing she did. And I found out that she recorded a vanity single before she went to law school. She recorded this vanity single called Like a Bird, and an original song. She didn't write it. And it just was so... we call it the most blood-chilling vanity single in Nepo Baby history. And I thought, oh, how perfect to have Tiffany perform her little single as in the middle of the play. And that's what we did. And I heard it, and then I gave it to John Cantwell, and he couldn't believe it. Like, nobody can believe that this really existed. You can hear it on Spotify, and it's a real thing. So I don't know if people do you think the audience realized that was a real thing, or did they think it was part of the...
I think they thought it was a real thing.
Okay, good.
Because you mentioned that she did it on Oprah. Is that right?
Yes.
She sang this.
Oprah, for some reason, gave her an episode, and I don't know what the whole episode was about. I wasn't watching Oprah at that point. I watched Oprah throughout the first decade of the 2000s. By 2011, it was near the end of, I think, her actual show. Yeah. Near the end of her run as a daily show. But she did perform it on Oprah, And it was cringy, and that was all I needed to hear in 2011. And then we stuck it into the play.
Tell people how they can see the show, and remind people of the dates and anything else you want to mention.
They can see the show. We have 6 performances between this Friday, June 14th, and June 28th, which is Friday 2 weeks later, at the Actors Company. You can go get tickets on the Fringe website, and tickets available for all shows. We have it's mostly at 10 o'clock. There are a couple of 8:30 performances and a 9:30, I believe, at the Actors Company in WeHo, which is right behind the Formosa Cafe.
I love it. Here's my final thought. I'm just going to share something with you and see if you spark to this. I send out a newsletter every month or so to plug the Mismatch Game and things like that. And
I read them all.
Oh, thank you.
And I have been.
Sometimes I'm a little embarrassed by it, but I always have something that I'm really trying to get people to go to.
I'm so impressed by what a good communicator you are, and how you're keeping up relationships with people, and that you've maintained for so long. And I used to be like that, and I so regret that my world has shrunk in the last 10 years, where, I love that yours hasn't, and yours just seems to be expanding even more. And I'm so impressed by that.
Thank you for saying that, but I feel some of those same things that you do. Well, basically what I'm feeling like is like, oh, it's over. It's over. I had my shot at the fair, and I don't totally buy into it, but I have those thoughts. And I sent out this newsletter this last month, and I talk about that I just got this dance agent, which I had talked about in the previous.
That's fantastic. Congratulations.
And more than any other newsletter.
That's such a great story.
More than any other newsletter I've ever sent out, I had people reach back to me and say, that story put a smile on my face.
And it did me too.
It made people, that story that somebody at my age can have this moment where it's not even a job yet. It's just a possibility.
Still, you're being seen, and your talent's being recognized by someone you didn't know.
And people are emailing back saying that made my day. People who I'm like, I'm not even sure who this is. I have to look it up. Like, I recognize the name. They're on my email list. Like,
right. I know.
There's something heartening to people about the idea that you can have something kind of cool, creative, maybe a little glamorous, maybe a little dreamy happen to you still. Yes. And I think that's why I'm like so happy that you're putting up the show again. Like, I think there's this thing like, oh, cool things can still happen.
They can. It's hard, but they can happen. And I mean, so every day I regret not being more prolific when I was younger, and people were more interested in everything I was doing. I have never been more prolific than I have in the past. Like, from COVID on, I have rewritten Glamour Puss. I redid it as a Kindle exclusive. I did everything to it that I wanted to do I asked to do when the paperback came out. I wanted to make some revisions and punch it up a little, and the publisher wouldn't let me. They were like, "It's selling great. You've been nominated for an award. We don't need to do anything to it." But I saved all those notes, so I redid Glamour Puss. It's on Kindle.
So people can get Glamour. It's like the director's cut on Kindle of Glamour Puss.
And it's much, much better now. I had my problems with that book because of like the real life story in it that didn't work out, and I kind of was like, it made me sad. But now I like it again. And when I went in and did the 25th anniversary edition, now I really like it, and I like that it's available on Kindle, and that new people can read it, or old fans can read it. And I've also, I've written a screenplay, and I created a couple of 3 TV series, and I'm developing this other animated sitcom with my friend Sean Baker, who just swept Cannes. Who won the Golden
Sean Baker, Tangerine Sean Baker.
Yes, and his new movie Honora, which I haven't seen yet, but I'm dying to see, won the top prize at the Cannes Film Festival. The same prize Tarantino won for Pulp Fiction. Sean won last week at Cannes for his new movie Honora, I've been excited about it since he told me about the idea. So I'm going to be seeing it soon. I'm seeing him and his girlfriend tomorrow night. And he's amazing. And we have this project together, an animated sitcom that was created by this actress, Bria Vignate, who started in the Florida Project.
Oh, she's incredible.
Yeah. She had an idea for an animated show. And Mariella and my writing partner and I came on and have been developing it with them. So I hope that goes somewhere too, because it would be really fun to work with both of them. And I'm so proud of Sean and excited because he's my favorite. He was my favorite new director he was before I even met him, and we became friends. He was a filmmaker that I was blown away by. His movie Starlet is one of the greatest, my favorite film of the decade it came out in. And then he's just had a string of these amazing films. And I think Anora is going to be his best. And certainly he's in a new category now. And the whole world knows how good he is.
Yeah. When did you meet him? Really nice. How did you meet him?
I met him because I also have a poster store called WestgateGallery.com. And that was because I was a poster collector.
That's cool.
I was 3 years old, and I started collecting movie posters at age 3. And I collected them my whole life. And I don't know if you remember, my office at Spider Games was movie posters. It was an obsession of mine. And I had, in 2015, I realized you have 3,000 posters. You're never, ever going to be able to display these all, no matter how many houses you get or how many offices or what. You're never, ever. And they're just going to be in storage. It's a waste. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to try to find good homes for these posters. So I started this web store, and it kind of did really well and expanded and got huge. And for a little while, and I would tweet posters every day repeatedly. And I tweeted a poster for Starlet, Sean's movie from 2012, which I had just seen and just fallen in love with. It was amazing. It's so moving and so funny and so unique. And he tweeted me back. It's like, that's my movie. He's like, I have some other alternate posters for it if you'd like to sell them. And I'm like, sure. So we met. And then he started having me do special orders of posters for him, for his friends and people he'd worked with. And he also was a huge movie poster fan. So we just immediately hit it off. We became instant friends. And then that's only grown as I've gotten to know him and his girlfriend over the last few years. So we were actually friends before I stumbled into writing for him. That came about, and it came about in a way that was totally independent of him. So I got to call him and say, oh, this pilot that you're involved with, they've asked me to work on it. And so that was great to be able to not have had to ask for, anything, and to just suddenly be a collaborator with him. And it's been awesome. And I'm so proud of him. And that's how I met him, from the poster store.
That's so cool. Which
I'm liquidating now.
I know. Well, I think as you get older, you're less enamored of stuff generally. I feel like there's a natural need to purge a little bit. What's the last poster you'd ever get rid of? What's the one you're going to keep?
I think my John Waters Desperate Living Italian posters for that, which are amazing paintings by this artist Tino Avelli. I hope it's Tino Avelli or Luca Cravato. I'm almost positive it's Tino Avelli, who painted their own only unique to Italy posters from Desperate Living, which is one of my favorite John Waters movies. I have both of those, the 39 by 55 inch and the 55 by 78 inch, 7 foot tall, subway version. I have those. I also have this horror movie I love called Blood and Black Lace, which is from 1964. It's an Italian thriller, a giallo, about a fashion house and a masked killer, killing all these models and drug addicts one by one. And the most gorgeously shot, Mario Bava horror film. I have the original posters for that. I also love Cafe Flesh, which is that X-rated sci-fi. I mean, that's one that I would keep, but there's 10 that I have to keep. But I did sell a lot of them. I sold almost all of the 3,000, and then because the store was successful, I ended up with many, many more posters. But I'm accepting all reasonable offers, and there's still a lot of great stuff left at WestgateGallery.com for 75% off.
There it is, WestgateGallery.com. Yeah. I love it.
If you want to buy, and it's named after my childhood porno theater.
Which was Westgate Gallery?
Westgate Cinema in Bangor, Maine.
Did you ever go to it?
No, I only saw the ads in the newspaper because I love to look at porno ads in the paper when I was 3rd grade onward, because I loved how adults would get so freaked out if you would mention the name of an X-rated movie or, God forbid, the actors in it. And so I would memorize all the names. I didn't know what these people looked like or who they were, but I knew Leslie Beauvais and John Holmes and Annette Haven and, Jamie Gillis and all these people just from reading. I love newspaper ads and movie ads in general, and I love the porn ads because they were so lurid, and you're just wondering as a kid, what must be going on in these movies that of age required and what is happening in them. So I was just always attracted to like lurid stuff. And so I have a shitload of these great porno movie posters, which to me, some of the very best American movie posters were for porno films because they had to tease and lure you into something incredibly outrageous and raunchy, and yet they had to be suitable to be displayed on Main Street and in ads in regular papers. So I'm really into that scene also.
I love it. I think it's so interesting that you have this fandom of one part of show business, and then you've also worked in another part and really gone through the ups and downs and the heartache and all of it. Are they related at all? Is there a connection, or are they two separate parts of your personality?
I think it's all part of just the same like fascination with the forbidden and the lurid and sleazy. I just have always liked that since I was very, very young. I mean, anytime a TV movie would come on in the 70s, it would be due to mature themes, parental discretion advised. I would campaign so hard to watch that. And if I was lucky enough to be staying with my grandmother for the week or something, then I would watch those. Then I would arrange it so I would wake up in the late at night and run down to the living room and watch them. But yeah, the X-rated industry is just fascinating to me because this was like a parallel Hollywood for a few years.
Right.
Like from the early 70s to the early 80s, there was this whole other industry making these movies, and people who had real talent were making these films. It wasn't just like you grab a video camera and shoot, people fucking in their bedroom. I mean, it was like you needed skills, editing and photography and writing and all of this. They're shot on location. There's some really good acting in it. They were like real actors who were excellent, true actors who just needed extra money, and they thought nobody would see these films. So I'm really into I'm fascinated by it. I have a whole TV series that I created about the early 80s porn scene in LA, and like there's a thinly disguised like Tracy Lords aspect to it, and other all the stuff that I know from being into the genre I've like put into this proposed series. So this is one of the irons we have in the fire. But yeah, I love it. It's so long gone. I mean, it doesn't exist. And even none of it exists. Movie posters don't really exist. Yeah. They're all the same. They're all the same photoshopped, ugly, unmemorable poster for almost anything that you see. And, X-rated movies don't exist. Exploitation films don't exist. I mean, it's all gone. But luckily, the art is still appreciating, and people are going to always be fascinated by that as it gets rarer and rarer. So I feel like that's something to hold on to.
Yeah. Something that brings you joy. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to wrap it up. I'm going to close with one final thought. Like, I think for both of us, we're around the same age. We've had our ups and downs, and you look back and you think, well, if that had gone differently or that, like I used to for a while keep scoring that way. And I'm kind of to the point where like, I'm still here. I can still do stuff.
Yeah.
That's it.
I feel funnier and more prolific and more able to do what I love doing best, which I realize is writing scripts and writing comedy. And I still have the energy and the drive to do it more than I ever had. And I'm going to keep at it until somebody notices again.
Yeah, I love it. I'm inspired by that. People should go see Trumpery. You're going to laugh a lot. I know there's a lot of Trump fatigue is real, but there's something about the structure of this and the ensemble of it that makes it a completely delightful, funny experience. So
thank you.
Lots of luck with it, and thank you for doing this podcast.
Thank you for having me, and come back and see it again near the end of the run.
I will. I definitely will. Thanks again to Christian McLaughlin. Learn more about his play Trumpery at Trumpery2024.com. It plays at the Fringe Fest through June 28th. All right, so this happened. In the last episode with Kay Anderson, I talked about wanting to go see Kylie Minogue at Pride. She's performing as the headliner at Pride last weekend. And after I got off the interview with Kay, I bought a ticket. I was like, yep, it's happening. Life is too short. Let's do this. And let me just tell you, it was transcendent. It was so much fun. I went with my friends, Benji and Paul and Victoria, who are very fun people to go to things like that with. And there was just a feeling in the air of just joy. And her songs, like pop songs to me are like little miracles. And it's like champagne. Like it's just bubbly and effervescent. It makes you feel good. And she has so many hits, and she could have done another 2 hours with other, hits. Like, it was just amazing. But there was a spirit about her that was so joyful and affirming, and just the journey that, she's been with us for 30 years. And or something like that, longer, like since the 80s. Like, it's just, I have a lot of these moments where I'm like, we're still here moments. And this was one of those in a way. She debuted a new song with Orville Peck, who's super sexy, even though he does that Sia thing where you don't see his face, called Midnight Ride. And it's like this cool, sexy kind of country tinge song that I guess is now available on the different streaming platforms. So that was exciting. And I'm just so glad I went. I was high on it for the next week. I'm still a little high on it. And before the show started, I got to meet Matt Rogers, the podcast guy that does Las Culturistas with Bo and Yang, and he's an actor as well, and I'm a big fan of his. And he's on my dream board, frankly, and he was walking by, and I was like, I'm just going to be like, so I was like, hey, Matt. And he turned around, and I was like, I'm a big fan, and I think your glitter story is everything. Because he had told a story recently on the podcast Love It or Leave It about how glitter... The soundtrack for Glitter came out on 9/11, and so when his mom showed up to school to pick him up because something serious was happening, he thought she was going to take him to buy glitter early. Like, that's what his mind was on 9/11. So his 9/11 story revolves around the Glitter soundtrack. Anyway, so I was like, I thought your story was everything. And he goes, thank you. And I said, it should be a movie. And he goes, it's in development. And then he went on his way. So we had a nice little exchange that had wit. It had connection. So cross that one off the dream board. I like him. I think he's cool. All right, that's enough for this week. I want to give a shout out to Oscar Rosario for mixing the episodes. My theme music is by Mark Danos for placement music. We'll catch you next time on Dennis Anyone. Bye!